Welcome to the Week 7 recap. I'm really pleased about the last week. It turned out that the position papers came out graded higher than any of the other position papers of the quarter, so that's really good. You guys are finishing on a strong note. I think the average grade was a 76 out of 90, which is an 85% of B. Again, the highest of the quarter so far, or the grading period. So very, very happy about that. Your discussions are also excellent. You're showing that you have a very good mastery of the subject matter, that you're doing the research, you're responding to your peers. I did go back, as I'd mentioned in previous lectures and recaps, and review the discussion boards to make sure that you responded to at least one. And I know that Mercy College is typically responded to, but I had to respond to one. Now, with that being said, it did lower some people's grades, but not very many. We've been on the honor system where we had I had given the 30 points for the initial post, expecting you to go ahead and follow up and complete the assignment as you should. And that's, I would say that probably 97% of the time, people actually did complete the assignment. So again, very pleased about that, very professional. Thank you very much for that. The last week revenue cycle, I really hope that you're enjoying that. That is probably one of the areas that I know the least about, but at the same time it's also one of the greatest impacts in the fact that everybody that that's Polly, everybody that encounters a healthcare system will go through an admissions process, even if it's an emergency room, all the way through to where they're actually billed, and that kind of dovetails into our consumerism, which we'll be talking about next week. In the meantime, sorry about that. In the meantime, a couple of you have put in your final papers. Both of those have been A's. Those are graduating seniors. That would be Brittany Meyerholtz and Michael Odo. So reach out to your colleagues and congratulate them. I think they should be walking here in the next couple weeks with their bachelor's degrees. So that's awesome. They have everything in. And a couple notes, the quiz is completely optional. If you've submitted papers to, hi baby, if you submitted papers to Smart Thinking, go ahead and send me the responses that they came back with. I'm very interested to see what they said about your essays. Again, not required, certainly optional. And let's see, the week 7, I think the week 7 or week 8, the last week that we have is on consumerism. And at this point in time, I would say that probably all but about 3 or 4 people really have a solid chance at getting an A, but they also have a solid chance of getting a B. So I really want you to finish up strong. I would much rather have A's to put in the grade book than B's, but it is what you earn, and the grading will be just as complete as the grading has been on the other papers. I do appreciate the fact that you've written so many papers and that you've learned so much about healthcare IT and the different aspects that it involves. It probably takes, anywhere from 2 to 10 hours to write a specific paper. I'm fairly lenient and lax on the requirements. Just fill out the requirements, make sure you have good spelling and punctuation and grammar, and make sure that your thoughts flow. And that's really been the emphasis throughout this entire course, is can you obtain the knowledge and then articulate it to me in a very professional and intelligent manner. So I really want you to continue with that. And of course, at the end, if you don't do well on the final, obviously it can affect your grade. So please finish strong. Again, I would much rather have a lot of A's than a lot of B's. As far as the final, the quiz is optional. The final paper, when you get that put in, that will be graded as soon as I can possibly get to it. But some of the questions I had was, does this have to be a real organization? Yes. Now, do you have to work for Kaiser Permanente? No. But if that's who your audience is, then I would expect you to speak as if it was a real thing. It can't be ABC Radiology, number one. Number two, do these have to be real healthcare IT vendors? Absolutely. In the week 4 discussion, one of the things that you did was you looked up resources, and we have the research of about 25 or 26 students who have picked up 10 resources, so that's almost 300 resources to comb through to get the IT vendor information. How specific does it need to be? Not very much. If you want to put the market cap or the value of a company and it's readily available to the public, absolutely, that's fine to do that. If you don't have to, you're not expected to go purchase this information or find this information somewhere else. But it does have to be like Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, Athena Health. It does have to be a real company. When we're talking about the financials for the organization, I'm really looking at the cost benefits, the value proposition. Because when you're presenting this to a board of directors or to a CEO, really what they want to know is, why do we need this? What is this and why do we need this and how does it benefit us? What's it going to cost and what are we going to get in return? So that return on investment will be, everything from, accommodating legislation to enhanced payments through Medicare and Medicaid, capturing charges that would have been lost. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why organizations elect to use an electronic health record. There's also some downfalls, and most of those are short-lived. So those would be the training curve of the staff, the upfront cost, maybe even the recurring cost if it's a subscription model, and certainly the organizational change or the reticence to change the organization. And we talked about that in our first week of Change is Great, You Go First, is that healthcare traditionally has been very, very reticent to change. This is no one is like us. Every organization out there, trust me, is the same in that nobody understands us. They all feel that way. They all feel that they're special or different or that they're unique. But the reality is that every healthcare organization has their own quirks, but most of them are reticent to change. The organization is not set up to change. I remember when I worked in Ohio Health back in the late 90s, the Pyxis profile was the new thing that was put out. And what that was the medication vending machine. Was when a Pyxis profile was applied to it, that the nurse could only, when they logged in, could only see their patients. And when you selected a patient, you could only see the patient's medications that were prescribed to that patient unless you had a charge nurse override. That was tantamount to a complete revolt in the Ohio Health system from the nurses on the floor. They couldn't believe that they would be restrictive in their practice so much, and they were threatening to quit. Some of them were just, I'm just quit and go somewhere else. But the reality was Ohio Health was the last organization in Columbus, Ohio, to implement Pyxis profile. So where were you going to go? You couldn't go to Ohio State because Ohio State had it for a couple of years. You couldn't go to Mount Carmel because Mount Carmel system had it for a few years. So you were the last ones to implement it, and the nurses were revolting. So that organizational change is very strong within healthcare, that reticence to change, and it is throughout the entire nation. This is not just an isolated incident in Central Ohio or Northeast Ohio, Northwest Ohio. Sorry about that. It's everywhere. We had barcoding in Kroger's in Cincinnati in the early 70s. RFID was developed back in the Second World War for fighter planes for the air support, and we're now seeing all those kind of things implemented in healthcare. And when I say now, over the last 5 to 10 years. So keep up the good work. We're on the home stretch. There are no other assignments for consumerism other than getting that final paper in. I like to have the last part of the grading period a little bit lighter so that you can focus on other classes as well. Of course, we have the holidays coming up, so I do wish you a happy holidays, but I think we'll have at least one more recap before the end of the grading period. Keep it up. You guys are so close to getting an A, those of you who are there. Those of you that have a low A, please maintain it. Take this paper very seriously. This is something that you may be asked to do in real life. So thank you so much, and of course, send me an email if you have any questions. Have a great day.